Assalamualaikum. Today class we will discuss on metal forming and shaping process. Metal forming is a shaping metal without melting the metal. It is quite differ from sand casting or metal casting as we discussed before. In metal forming, there is no changes of phase of metal. The metal is start from solid and end also with the solid. But for metal casting, there is changes in phase of material, starting from the solid and liquid through the melting practice in furnace, and then pouring into the mold and let it solidify. So the change of material phase from solid, liquid, and back to the solid. But in metal forming, the metal is not changed from solid to other phase. It's remain in the solid state condition. In metal forming, there is a nature deformation involved in metal forming. The deformation, there are two types of deformation, which is the plastic deformation and elastic deformation. But in the metal forming, we require the plastic deformation. Elastic deformation means that when we apply force to the metal or any material, the metal or any material will change its shape. But when we release the force, the material will go back to the original position. But for the plastic deformation, when we apply the force, the metal will change its shape, and when we release the force, the metal will still remain its shape. So it's not going back to the original position. So in metal forming, we require plastic deformation. In metal forming, deformation in metal forming will cause the grain size of the original material. Usually is a high grain size, and after we deform, it will become the smaller. The changes of the grain size to the smaller grain size will increase the strength of the materials. In metal forming, there are two working conditions which we can conduct. The first one is the hot working, and the second one is a cold working. A hot working means that the forming process occur in the higher temperature, normally above the recrystallization temperature, but not until melting temperature. Okay? So below the melting temperature but above recrystallization temperature. Process involved such as extrusion, welding, forging, drawing, rotary piercing. So we will discuss the process in the later lecture. In cold working process, the deformation occur in the normal room temperature. No heating are required. So process involved such as bending, rolling, extrusion, forging, shearing, drawing, and etc. Why they have two type of working environment? This is because there is a lot of parameter that we should consider. Either we want to choose the hot working or cold working. Mainly the material or metal, they have two type of properties. Metal, either they have the property of ductile, or can be brittle. Okay, usually if the metal is ductile, you can choose the cold working process because the ductile material is very soft. But for the brittle material, the suitable process is a hot working. So brittle material is usually high hardness, high strength, and when we apply the heat and increase the temperature, and the metal will change its properties from brittle and to the ductile. The ductility of the metal will increase. Okay, when and there is a advantages of hot working process. In hot working process, when we increase the temperature, the metal strength is low, so hence the less force is adequate for causing the deformation. So when metal is the ductility of the metal increase, it will become soft, and we only require a small we only require the lower force to deform the metal. So increase the ductility. And also we can reduce the defect. Usually in the metal, inside the metal, they have a porosity, sand pores. And when we apply the heating process and then we apply the pressure, the pore will become smaller and maybe can be reduced. And then we also can get the high strength of material because we able to obtain the small grain. The smaller the grain, the better the strength of the material. And then but hot working have the also have the disadvantages. The first one is there will be a scaling or rapid oxidation occur on the surface of the workpiece. This is because heating process, when we apply heat to the metal at the surface of the metal, they will cause the oxidation occurs. And then the product is less precise. This is due to the thermal contraction and warping from the uneven cooling. So when we apply the heat, the metal will expand, and then we reduce the temperature, the metal will shrink. So it is difficult for us to get the high accuracy product. And then maybe we will get the uneven grain structure and expensive process because we require a heating unit to heat the metal. Okay, for the cold working process, there is some advantages, several advantages. The first one is no additional features heater required. Of course, there is no additional money that we'll have to spend to buy the heater. And then we can get the good surface finish of the product because of no oxidation or scaling occurs. And then we can reduce the waste as compared to the machining. This is the idea of reduce waste as compared to the machining is when we compare to other process such as machining, because in machining we will get the scrap. Chip is a scrap, and scrap is a waste. But in cold working, no scrap or chip is generate. And then low production time, and because of low production time, we can use this method for for the large production. If we get a greater demand, high demand, we can opt for the cold working process. Why low production time? Because no heating required. But cold working also have the several disadvantages. The first one is we require the greater force. Because metal is in a room temperature, the strength is higher, so we need a very high force to shape the metal. Expensive tooling, because we have the tool need to apply high force on the tool, so our tooling must have the high hardness and high strength. So the tool is quite expensive. And complex process, the surface must be clean and scale free. But cold working only suitable for large production volume. If we have a lower demand, so better we choose another process. Because cold working need high capital cost on the tooling, especially on the die. And cold working much suitable for the material which is less ductile. Means the metal is soft, less ductile. For the brittle material, it's not impossible to do to apply the cold working process. Okay, this is the product, example product made from the metal forming. So at the right is we can see the tools spanner. This is a very high strength application, and in the left figures is a tools. In Malay we call it keris. This is very hard material. So these two products require high load application. So the best method to produce is through the metal forming process. Others product which made from the metal forming process, such as the connecting rod, beam structure, I-beam, H-beam, L-beam, which used in construction industry, which carry the high load to support the building. Okay, thank you very much. And the next process we will discuss on the specific type of metal deformation process.